So what we're going to work on in this video is to classify lines. If you're given two equations of lines, are those two equations, would those graphs be parallel, perpendicular, or neither? So any question about parallel lines, perpendicular lines, it's all about the slopes. If you know the slopes of the lines, you can tell me if they're parallel. Parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. If the two slopes are neither of those, then those lines are not parallel or perpendicular. Most lines are neither, by the way. If you were to graph two lines, it's very possible that they cross, which means they're not parallel, but they're not crossing at that exact right angle, so they're not perpendicular. Okay, so what do we need to do to tell if if the graphs of the equations will be parallel, perpendicular, or neither? We need to find the slopes of each line. So our first line is this equation, 3y equals negative 4x plus 6. Okay, so I look at this form of the equation. This is not point slope form. It's not y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. It's not slope-intercept form because it has a 3 with the y. If it was just y equals, I'd have slope-intercept form. And this is not standard form, ax plus by equals c. So how can we figure out the slope of this line? Your default is you can always solve for y. If you solve for y, you have y equals mx plus b. We can solve for y pretty easily if we just divide by 3. So over here, I'm going to divide every term by 3. Y equals negative 4/3. I'm just going to put the x off on the side. Plus 6 divided by 3 is 2. And now we have slope-intercept form. So I can easily find the slope of negative 4/3. All right, our second equation is y equals negative 3/4 x minus 5. So I want to recognize this is y equals mx plus b. We have slope-intercept form, which means we can find the slope right there. This slope is negative 3/4. So are these lines parallel? Is negative 4/3 the same as negative 3/4? Nope, not parallel. They have to be exactly the same. Perpendicular, you need an opposite reciprocal. So I think we're close. This is 4/3. The reciprocal is 3/4. So we've got the reciprocal piece, but you also have to have opposite signs. This slope is negative, which means this slope would have to be positive for us to say they were perpendicular. You can't have two, perpendicular lines will never have two negative slopes. So this one is neither. It was not parallel and not perpendicular. All right, let's just try one more of those. Are these lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? So this 9x plus 3y equals negative 9. This is not point slope form. It's not slope-intercept form. This is standard form, ax plus by equals c. So there is a handy little thing. You guys saw it in a homework problem from your lesson on standard form. We can take a nice little shortcut and get the slope of standard form. The slope of standard form is negative a divided by b. Remember, this is ax plus by equals c. If we were to take this equation and solve for y, we would subtract ax from both sides, so now a is negative, and then we would divide everything by 3, which means you would end up dividing everything by b, so that slope ends up being negative a over b. Maybe put a star, highlight that in your notes somehow. That's a good little slope formula to know. If you have standard form, you can easily get the slope by just doing negative a over b. So let's figure out what the slope is. The a value is 9, so I'm going to do negative 9 over, our b value is 3, negative 9 over 3. So this equation has a slope of negative 3. All right, our second equation is y minus 7 equals negative 3 times x minus 2. Do we recognize the form that this equation is in? Here's your y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. This is point slope form. Well, that's great. Point slope form has the slope right in it. The slope is always going to be after the equal sign in front of your parentheses with the x. So this slope is negative 3. Are our lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Well, the slopes are exactly the same, so that means that we have parallel lines. So on problems like this, just find the slope of both lines and compare them.